When I walked out of that meeting with Crawford Metals, my heart was racing. I had just signed a deal with the same company my father had given his life to, and for the first time, I felt like I was standing on equal ground with him. But it wasn't enough. Because deep down, there was still that 12-year-old boy who remembered the sound of his father's laughter when he said, "You'll never make it." That laughter lived rent-free in my head. And I wasn't done until I turned it into silence. Over the next 2 years, SteelLink exploded in growth. Our technology became the gold standard for supply chain optimization. Small firms, large corporations, government contracts, we had them all. Investors lined up. Competitors tried to copy us. And I, the boy who once had nothing, was now sitting on a multi-million-dollar company. I moved into an apartment overlooking the city skyline. I hired a team that felt like family. But even with all the success, I couldn't shake the thought of him. My father, still working the same desk, still wearing the same tired tie, probably still calling me a failure. Sometimes I'd drive by Crawford Metals, just to see him through the window. He hadn't changed. Same gray hair, same slumped shoulders. But I had. One rainy afternoon, I got a call from Mr. Crawford himself. He wanted to discuss a strategic merger. His company was struggling financially. Their systems were outdated, their contracts slipping. And I knew. This was it. The moment fate was quietly circling back. We met in his top-floor office, overlooking the city. The storm outside was fitting. "Daniel," Mr. Crawford began, folding his hands, "you've built something remarkable. To be honest, SteelLink has outperformed every expectation we had. Our board is very interested in a potential acquisition. Complete buyout." I leaned back, letting the words sink in. "Buyout?" I asked slowly. "Of Crawford Metals?" He nodded. "We're open to selling controlling shares. The company needs fresh direction." My pulse quickened. For a moment, I couldn't even respond. The thought of owning the very place my father worshipped, it felt surreal. "How soon?" I asked. "Within 6 months, if you're ready." I smiled. "Oh, I'm ready." The following months were a blur of negotiations, signatures, and relentless drive. Every meeting, every late-night call, I was fueled by something personal, something deeper than profit. I wasn't buying a company. I was reclaiming a childhood dream that had been mocked into ashes. By the end of the fiscal year, the deal was done. SteelLink officially acquired Crawford Metals Ltd. I was now the owner and CEO of the company my father had spent his entire life serving. The announcement made headlines. "Young entrepreneur buys century-old metal giant in record deal." But none of the journalists knew the real story. They didn't know about the broken relationship, the slammed doors, or the son who was told he'd never make it. They didn't know that the man who mocked me now worked for me. The first day I walked through those doors as the new owner, the atmosphere was thick with whispers. Employees turned their heads. Some clapped politely. Others just stared. I recognized the corridors, the same gray floors I'd once walked as a kid when Dad brought me here during school breaks. Back then, the building felt huge and cold. Now, it felt conquered. I took the elevator to the operations floor, where my father worked. Through the glass, I saw him sitting there, older, a bit frilier, with deeper lines on his face. He was going through reports, completely unaware of what had changed above him. I stood for a moment, just watching him. There was a time I'd wanted to scream, to throw every insult back at him. But now I just wanted him to see. At noon, I called for a company-wide meeting. Every department head, supervisor, and floor manager was invited to the main conference room. My father walked in late, just like always. He took a seat in the back, probably wondering why a meeting this big was happening on a Tuesday. I stood at the front, beside Mr. Crawford, who was smiling faintly. "Good afternoon, everyone," I began. "As of today, there are some major changes at Crawford Metals. Our company has officially entered a new chapter." The murmurs started immediately. My father looked up, squinting. Mr. Crawford continued, "It gives me great pride to introduce the new owner and CEO of Crawford Metals Ltd. Mr. Daniel Reed." The room fell silent. I could hear my father's pen drop. Every face turned toward me, but I only saw one. His. Thomas Reed's mouth fell slightly open, disbelief spreading across his face like a slow wave. He blinked once. Twice. Then his hand gripped the edge of the table, as if he needed something to hold on to. I stepped forward, calm, composed. "Thank you, Mr. Crawford. I'm honored to continue this company's legacy and lead it into the future." The applause was polite, confused. Some smiled, others whispered, but my father didn't move. He just stared at me, his son, the boy he'd once thrown out with nothing. After the meeting, as people dispersed, he stayed seated. His eyes followed me as I spoke with managers and shook hands. When the room finally cleared, it was just the two of us. I turned slowly. "Hi, Dad." He stood up, his face pale. "Daniel," he whispered, almost like he couldn't believe it. You're the new CEO?" "Not just CEO," I said quietly. "I own the company." The words hung there, heavy, echoing between us. He swallowed hard, his throat moving like he'd forgotten how. How did you remember that idea you said was stupid?" I interrupted. "The one you laughed at? The one you said would never pay the bills?" His eyes darted away, guilt flickering. "I built it," I said. "I built it into something real. And now that idea owns the company you've given your life to." He sat down slowly, like the weight of it all was too much. "I never meant." "Yes, you did," I cut in, but my tone softened. "You meant every word. You wanted me to play it safe, to give up on myself like you did. But I couldn't. I couldn't live like that." He looked up at me, eyes glistening. "You think I didn't believe in you, but I just didn't want you to get hurt. The world doesn't spare dreamers, Daniel." I took a deep breath. Maybe not. But I'd rather get hurt chasing something real than die regretting I never tried. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence. Finally, he said quietly, "You're really the boss now, huh?" I nodded. "Looks that way." He chuckled, not bitterly this time. More like disbelief. "Your old man works for his son. Never thought I'd see the day." I walked closer, pulling out a chair beside him. "Neither did I said softly. "But here we are." He stared at his hands. "Guess I was wrong about you." "Guess so," I said, smiling faintly. Then, after a moment, he whispered, "I'm proud of you, son." That stopped me cold. It was the first time I'd ever heard those words from him. They came out shaky, unsure, but real. I didn't know how to respond. For so many years, I'd imagined this moment as victory. But now, it just felt heavy. Because behind that pride, I saw something else. Regret. We sat there for a while, father and son, the past and present sitting side by side. He told me how things had gotten hard after Mom died. How he'd buried himself in work because it was the only thing that didn't remind him of her. How he took out his fear on me because I reminded him too much of her, the dreamer she used to be. And for the first time, I understood. He wasn't cruel because he hated me. He was cruel because he'd already lost everything once and couldn't bear to watch me lose too. I sighed. "You could have just told me that." He looked up, eyes tired but soft. "I didn't know how." I leaned back, looking around the office, the walls, the desks, the machines humming below. "You know," I said quietly, "I didn't buy this company to humiliate you." He frowned. "Then why?" "To prove you wrong," I said. "To prove that your son wasn't the mistake you thought he was." He nodded slowly. "And you did. You proved it, Danny." I hadn't heard him call me that since I was a kid. When I left the office that day, the rain had stopped. The sky was breaking open with light, and for the first time in years, I felt Peace. Not the satisfaction of revenge. Not the thrill of winning. Just peace. Because I didn't need him to bow or beg. All I'd ever wanted was for him to see me. To finally understand that his son made it. Not in spite of him, but because of everything he pushed me to become. Weeks later, as the company transitioned under SteelLink's management, my father officially retired. At his farewell party, he stood on stage and said something that stunned everyone. He looked at me and said, "I spent my life believing dreams were dangerous. But my son showed me they're what keep us alive." The room went silent, then filled with applause. I couldn't stop the tears that formed in my eyes. He stepped down, shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you, Daniel," he said again, this time firmly. "More than you'll ever know." As I stood there, surrounded by the people who once doubted me, I realized something important. Revenge isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes, it's about changing them. And maybe, just maybe, I hadn't just avenged the boy he mocked. I'd saved the man he'd forgotten how to be. My name is Daniel Reed, and ever since I was a kid, I wanted to create something of my own. Not just a small job or side hustle. I dreamed of building a company that could change how people worked and lived. But my father, Thomas Reed, didn't believe in dreams. He believed in paychecks, routines, and staying in line. He had worked at Crawford Metals Limited for more than 2 decades, same desk, same schedule, same sigh every Monday morning. He'd always say, "Dreams don't pay the rent, Danny. You need a real job, something solid." When I told him I wanted to start a tech company one day, he laughed. That kind of bitter, dismissive laugh that sticks in your chest. You can't even change a printer cartridge, and you're talking about running a company? You're chasing fairy tales like your mother did. That hit deep. My mom, Laura, had passed away when I was 12, and she was the only one who ever truly believed in me. She used to say, "Daniel, one day the world will need what's inside your mind. Don't you ever stop dreaming." After she died, my father turned cold. He drowned himself in overtime, in anger, in bitterness. And I became the punching bag for his frustrations. When I graduated high school, he tried to force me into a position at Crawford Metals. But I refused. That night, everything exploded. He shouted, "You'll regret this, boy. The world doesn't care about your stupid dreams." And I screamed back, "Maybe not, but at least I'll care about myself." He kicked me out that same night. No money. No backup. Just me, a duffel bag, and a stubborn heart that refused to quit. I crashed with 2 friends in a rundown apartment in the city, 3 dreamers chasing the impossible. We spent nights coding, designing, pitching half-broken ideas, and getting rejected over and over. The struggle was real. Some days we could barely afford food. I'd sit by the window at 3 a.m., staring out at the city lights, wondering if Dad was right. Maybe I was wasting my life. Then one day, my friend Ava Torres, a software engineer with more brains than all of us combined, came up with an idea. A digital platform that would help manufacturing and steel companies manage inventory and cut waste. It was simple, smart, and exactly what the industry needed. We called it SteelLink. 4 months, we built it from scratch, surviving on coffee and pure determination. The first version was rough, but it worked. We convinced a small metalworks company to try it. Within a week, they saved thousands of dollars. Word spread fast. Within a year, SteelLink was being used by dozens of companies across the region. And then came the email that made my hands tremble, from Crawford Metals Ltd., the same company where my father still worked. They wanted to schedule a meeting with us to explore partnership opportunities. When I walked into that glass tower for the first time, it felt surreal. The place I'd been told I'd never belong, now wanted my help. I met with the executives. Mr. Crawford himself praised our system, saying it could revolutionize their operations. He even said, "Daniel, this technology is ahead of its time. You're going places, son." And while we talked numbers, I caught sight of the floor below through the glass, and there he was. My father. Sitting at his same desk. Same slouched posture. Same tie he'd probably worn for years. He didn't notice me, but I saw him. And for a moment, I felt everything all at once: anger, pride, sadness, and something like justice. Mr. Crawford said they'd be open to an acquisition deal in the future. I smiled, shaking his hand, but my mind was elsewhere. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something much, much bigger. One day soon, I told myself, he'll know exactly who I became. And when that day comes, I'll be sitting in the chair he once bowed to.